This guide will tell you how to write your direct examination section. What you need to focus on are open-ended questions. That's asking, what happened on the night of the crime? It's open-ended. The witness can say whatever they want. That's what I need to see in all direct examination questions. Make sure you don't have any cross-examination style questions. That's leading questions. Leading questions would say, on the night of the crime, you were with your girlfriend and you had a fight, didn't you? You told her that you were going to get a gun and go kill someone, didn't you? You're telling somebody what happened, as opposed to being open-ended and saying, what happened with you and your girlfriend? Who were you with on the night of the crime? How did you feel on the night of the crime? Those are open-ended questions, so make sure that all of your questions meet that style. A good trick is to say, hey, how long are my questions? If they're really long, you're probably leading a little bit. Now, just to keep in mind, it's okay to repeat information that a witness has stated. So if you ask a witness, where were you on the night of the crime, and they tell you they were at the bar or the club or wherever the shooting happened, then you can ask them a question that includes that fact. For example, while you were at the bar, what did you do? Who did you see? You're not leading because they've already told you they were at the bar. Another trick is to make sure your witnesses have more detailed answers than your questions. It's hard to lead someone if they're giving you more information than you're giving them. If it looks like the attorney's doing all the talking and making some great points, and the witness is just kind of saying yes and saying little short sentences to confirm what the attorney's saying, then it's not a direct examination. You're doing a cross-examination, and that's not allowed. You're going to get objected to. So some keywords and phrases to look for: isn't that true? Correct? Right? Those are cross-examination phrases. You're putting the words in the witness's mouth. Open-ended phrases are like, tell me about blank. Why did you blank? When are leading questions not allowed? Never during the direct examination. They basically put words in someone's mouth, and we've already talked about that. Now, a very important point is that you need to be making PowerPoints. If you're a good writer, mock trial is not your chance to be a great writer. Mock trial is your chance to be a good point maker. You need to have succinct, aimed, sharp points that you're making. You need to have a list. You're going to get with your team and you're going to make a list of maybe 6 points, maybe 8 points, but all of these points are the key things that make your case. They prove the crime elements. So once you establish what the crime elements are and you break down the statute, you need to make sure that these PowerPoints are proving the crime elements. For example, if you need to prove that the defendant caused someone's death, then your PowerPoint should be a short statement that shows the defendant caused something to happen. So whatever the whole theory of your case is and the whole story is, you're not really focused on conveying that. When you look at your question sheet, there should be 6 or 8 sections of questions that all culminate to a PowerPoint being stated at the end. During the direct examination, the witness states the PowerPoint. You ask some open-ended questions, maybe 2, maybe 6 open-ended questions, just kind of leading the witness along a path. And at the end of that question section, the witness needs to state a PowerPoint that you all agreed on and planned and memorized ahead of time. All of the stuff that happens before that PowerPoint doesn't necessarily have to be memorized. That's how mock trials are different than a play. It's different than a speech. It's different than anything where you're memorizing a presentation. In a mock trial, you know your case and the crime elements, and you may vary in how you prove those. But what I don't want you to vary on is your PowerPoints, because those are things you decided before trial that you need to make in order to win your case. So if you skip a PowerPoint or miss one, you're basically risking losing your case because you're probably not proving all the crime elements that you're supposed to be proving. Who should state the PowerPoints? Well, it's got to be the attorney during a cross-examination, because you don't want the witness to be saying anything, but we'll talk about that during the cross section. During the direct examination section, it's got to be the witness, because otherwise the attorney would be leading them. How many times does a PowerPoint need to be stated? At least once. If you skip a PowerPoint completely during your examination, then like I said, you're risking losing the case. You need to make sure that all PowerPoints are stated clearly at least once. A good way to do it is to have your questions organized into sections, like I mentioned. In your examination sheet, you need to see sections. And do not start a new section until you've made your PowerPoint. When the witness states the PowerPoint of a direct examination, you should hear a ding in your head or see an invisible checkbox in your head. However you want to visualize it, you need to be thinking in your head, okay, I'm building to a PowerPoint. Boom, they made it. Great, now I can move on. Don't move on to a different point because you're going to mess the jury up if you're mixing PowerPoints. You need to be building to something and boom, hitting it. Building to something, boom, hitting it. That way, the judges of this will say, we saw a clear roadmap in your trial. We saw you build a clear roadmap. And another part of that roadmap is a theme, which we'll talk about in a minute. As far as the bad points go, notice that you've underlined good things and bad things in every affidavit. The thing about the bad things is that you actually do want to go ahead and bring it up during a direct, and this is why. You don't want people to be surprised during the cross. Guaranteed, those bad things are going to come out. So who do you want to be the first one to bring it up? You or them? Because your opponent is going to make it look really bad, whatever those red things are. You need to go ahead and figure out a way to bring the bad stuff up in a way that downplays it, makes it look like not that big of a deal. So the reason you underline red things is so that you would know, okay, what are my weak points? How can I explain those away? How can I make it look like either not a big deal or not as it says in the affidavit? Maybe it's kind of misleading. Maybe there's another way to interpret it. Somehow you need to downplay that red stuff and you need to bring that out. Say it in a way like, oh, yeah, no, I didn't really want the person to die. I just said that when I was joking around. That would be a stretch if you said that you wanted someone to die and you're trying to downplay that, but you want to do the best you can. I mean, sometimes there are things that you just cannot downplay very well, but you want to do the best you can for all of your points. A case theory is the full story of the case. That's what you and your partners will come up with is, well, what really happened here? Did the defendant murder the person or is the defendant completely innocent? It's your whole story of how that happened. The theme is a very short catchphrase that summarizes your theory. For example, in a case where a plaintiff has sued a defendant for letting their child come over and play with the plaintiff's gun and kill the plaintiff's daughter, if the plaintiff is suing the defendant, this is a good defense theory, and this was what was used in a previous case. It was the plaintiff's gun, the plaintiff's bullets, and the plaintiff's safe that let this happen. It's in the jury's mind. You repeat that. A theme needs to be repeated by every single witness of your case during the direct and during the cross, and the attorney needs to state it in the opening statement and the closing argument. By the end of that trial, I guarantee you the jury will remember your theme, if nothing else. That's what you're doing is brainwashing them. They will remember if every single person says this and maybe says it multiple times. It's the plaintiff's gun, the plaintiff's bullets, the plaintiff's safe. How can you blame the defendant when it's the plaintiff's materials that caused this? And you're going to brainwash the jury into thinking that. So whatever case we're doing this year, you need to think of a way to brainwash the jury into thinking that it's the other side's fault or that it's not your fault. And usually you'll use 3 points like I just did. If you want to use 5 or you want to use a different number or a different method, that's fine, but it needs to be that same idea of brainwashing the jury, and you need to have all of your witnesses and attorneys mention this together. At the end of the trial, if you don't overdo it, the judges will compliment you and they'll say you did a good job of having a team effort.